McCarthy told lots of interesting stories about the development of Lisp, and he told the story about they had wanted to use syntax for Lisp, and then one of his students came up with this idea of, well, Lisp is manipulating S expressions. Just to get started, why don't we represent Lisp as S expressions? And then he pointed out, that they never got past that point. And then one of the students said, oh, we should have an S expression that stands for a function. And McCarthy had studied under Alonzo Church. So he went back and looked at his notes and came back and told them, we'll call it Lambda. And I'm told, not by McCarthy, but history records that Church was not a particularly inspiring lecturer. And I think all he picked up from the notes was the syntax, which is a shame because, when I was young, everybody was worried about this thing called the funarc problem. And the funarc problem was that if you passed your function into a different context, since they were using dynamic binding, it would behave differently. Or if you passed a function into a different context, it would behave differently. And there's this huge issue about what are we going to do about the funarc problem? And I remember reading lots of papers about the funarc problem. And it turned out what the funarc problem really was that Lisp used dynamic binding instead of static binding. And I remember seeing this lecture by Hewitt when they'd just come up with Scheme. He was visiting at Stanford, and this was like my last year as an undergraduate. And then he explained about, you need static binding instead. I'm not sure I actually followed it at the time. It was a very important lecture for me because he explained about lambda calculus, which I'd heard the term lambda, but not the term lambda calculus. And so that got me moving in the right direction in terms of what I would then read and study.